Hello and welcome to Mistakes Were Made. This is a channel that I created to document my family's progress with debt reduction and eventual elimination. If you are new, welcome. I hope you find something of interest. And if you want to know how we came to be where we are, where we started from, all of that good stuff, I do recommend checking out our debt confession video. It is the first video that we put out about 6 months ago. If you have been following along, thank you, first of all. I know time is a precious commodity. It is one of those things that you just cannot get back. So the fact that you are spending some of your time with us to see how we're doing and what's going on with us is very, very much appreciated. All right, we are going to get started. Today is going to be a budget with me for the first pay period in May. So we are covering May 1st through May 15th. Again, if you're new, we do our budget based on pay period, and just the way his paycheck falls and my paycheck falls, it just makes sense for us to break the month up essentially in half. So a first pay period means first half of the month, second pay period means second half of the month, and so that's why we're doing the 1st through the 15th. All right, so why don't we get started here? I'm gonna zoom in so that y'all can actually see what we're doing. Okay, now you may notice I don't have a typo anymore. We have updated our spreadsheet as well as our print off, and just for information, this has changed over time since we started doing this, and this particular format is heavily borrowing from debt-free Jessie and the spreadsheet that she has. And what I did is I created a spreadsheet very similar to hers and then created this sheet based off of that spreadsheet and tailored it to our needs and things like that. So we are going to start here, and 206. So $2,006.55, and then mine is $1977.38. And we do not have any more miscellaneous income to worry about. We are not going to do the Etsy because, again, we have no idea what kind of pay or what kind of purchases people might make, if any. We do have our buffer rollover of 200. And now this is a little bit speculative because it is now Monday the 29th. Because it is well after midnight. But what that means is we are still in the second pay period of April, so we have not closed that month out. The expectation is it's going to be $200.66, but something could happen in these next couple of days to make a change in that. But we're going to go with what this expected amount is. And let's get these added up first, and then we'll talk about a couple of things. So add that plus the 266, and we are looking at $4,184.59. Okay, so I was a little bit thinking that this 266 was not right. Something just struck me as it was a little bit off, and actually it should be $200.88, which, in the long run doesn't necessarily make a huge difference, but I want to try and be as accurate as possible. So we will reconfigure this. So we're at $4,184.81. So that'll just have to look ugly. Now, what do we have here that's different? His paycheck. And you know what? I'm probably going to start saying, calling him my fiance as well as my partner, and maybe Mr. M, just for, Mr. Mistakes Were Made, which I guess kind of makes him sound like an ex that I regret, but that's not the case. It's too late. The name is going to stick. So Mr. M, if you have been following our channel, you know that in the last 4 pay periods, he has had his pay artificially reduced because the company made an error when they were paying out some PTO. They paid too much PTO out, and so to backtrack that, they were taking $250 off of his paycheck for the course of 4 paychecks because the amount of overage was $1,000. We had saved some of what that overage was, so while that was going on, we saw how much that ended up reducing his pay, his net pay, and then we augmented that, and it was about $82 to $83 each pay period. That process is now done. So the expectation would be we would be back to what his pay was before, or what comes into our shared account before, which was $1,561 and some change. As you can see, that is not that amount, and that is because he also received a raise. Now, I will say, I don't trust this amount, and that's because I tried to do some speculative, calculations on what I thought the raise would adjust his pay to. And what I came up with was about $1,750, maybe $1,780. I will admit I am no math wizard. I was trying to do ratios and using how much his net pay dropped based on how much they took away from his gross, and then tried to make that scenario fit with an increase in gross and what that increase, how that might affect his net. I am 100% sure I totally made mistakes. But even with that in mind, that still seems really high to me. And he did check, he looked at his pay stubs. He didn't see anything that looked unusual. There weren't any bonuses or anything that might account for an extra little boost. So everything looked okay, but we're gonna go with the idea that a single paycheck does not make a pattern. We're gonna wait and see what the next paycheck looks like. And then if that one falls in that same $2,000 range, then we'll feel comfortable making adjustments if necessary to how we're allocating money or things like that. And as we are speculating out into the future. And that's really the important part for me, because any increase in wage that he is receiving is going to have significant ramifications on my post-job situation. If we use some completely random numbers, if our budget is $2,000 and right now he's putting in $1,000 and I'm putting in $1,000, when my job goes away, obviously we are now lacking $1,000 a month. If we have been saving to try and cover 6 months worth of expenses, that means we needed $6,000. If his pay then has an increase to, we'll say $1,500, that changes the situation. One, if we haven't fully, gotten to that 6,000, well, now I only need to account for $500 because he's already doing $1,500. So 6 months at 500 is just 3,000. So maybe we have met the goal at that point. If we've already made it to the 6,000 and now I only have to account for $500, that effectively doubles what our how far our money can stretch. So if it takes me longer than 6 months to find a new job, we are covered. And in fact, that would give us, a whole year's worth. of time. Now, again, those are just arbitrary numbers. We're not lucky enough to have a budget that is only $2,000. I wish our costs and things like that were that low. But it's not. So that this has a fairly big impact on, some of our future stuff. The other area where there's an impact is the actual job hunt. If out of using that $2,000 example, if I only need to make sure I'm covering $500 of it, that means the minimum wage that I can accept is now lower than it would have been if I needed to be covering $1,000. So there's a little less pressure as far as meeting a specific wage. And my expectation would be it might be a little bit easier to find a lower wage job than a higher wage job. Though, I hear the rumblings out there that it's not easy anywhere or at any level. But, the thought would be there's more lower wage jobs available than higher wage ones. So there's more opportunities. Okay, I have spent enough time rambling on that. So we are going to move on. So now we have our expenses, which we have the mortgage, $875. And then we have our standard costs that come due during the first part of the month. $15.49 for Netflix. Kindle is $11.99. My car insurance is you know what? I don't know how I managed to not write that down, but I didn't. So we're going to skip that. The water bill is $121, and then his car is $204.59. I am going to go look at my notes and be right back. Ta-da! I am back. It was no time for you, hopefully. $114.34. Okay, so we are going to do the math on this. $875 plus $15.49 plus $11.99 plus $114.34 plus $121 plus $204.59, which brings us to a total, because we are going to ignore these, of $1,342.72. I feel like I am now just all over the place all of a sudden because things haven't been 100% where they should be. So if we take that from our $4,184.81, that leaves us with $2,842.09 left. The emergency fund does not get funded during the first pay period. We do not do any of the calculations for extra savings. That we need to get through all of the costs that we are obligated to cover before we can do those calculations. The buffer for now will just be a flat 200. We will adjust that at the end as well. So we only have $200 to worry about here, and that's going to be an easy math. Our leftover will be $2,642.09. Scooch this up just a smidge. So now we're looking at our cash envelopes, and we do not fund all of these during each pay period. Some of them are first half, some are second half, and then there are some that we do fund both. So the first one that we do fund is going to be car, which is $100. Then Christmas is $12. We don't do clothing, but we do dining out, which is going to get $50, as is entertainment. And let me do that. Garden yard will get $25. Gas is going to get $100. Our kitties might be gearing up to make a little bit of a ruckus. So if you hear Armageddon behind me, it's because out of all the time that they've had during the day to, have fits, they've decided to wait until I'm doing something with a video. Gifts, we do not fund. Giving gets $5. Health, oh, nope, we're at groceries. Groceries gets $200. And then health gets $10. The household gets $25. Licenses gets $15. We don't fund either of those. And then taxes gets $20. Now, I have to say I am very appreciative that these numbers don't change very often. It does make life easier to kind of have a good understanding of what you can expect to see going out and what you can expect to see coming in. I know that there are folks out there that are doing budgets and they don't have that luxury. There's a lot of spikes and drops in their budgets, and trying to manage that, I think, would be quite a nightmare. And many, many kudos to the folks who are weathering that kind of situation. I am very grateful that our budget is pretty static and maybe even a little bit boring. So we are going to go ahead and add these together. We got $100 plus 12 plus 50 plus 50 plus 25 plus 100 plus 5 plus 200 plus 10 plus 25 plus 15 plus 20, which gets us to $612. Now, the only thing that might shift slightly is going to be these taxes, because it is very much informed by how much I manage to sell on Etsy. If I manage to sell a lot, then we may have to make some adjustments in how much we're allocating each pay period. If I'm not selling quite as much, then what we have in place may cover our needs. So, all right, we are going to take our remaining leftover from up here, which was $26.42 and take $612 from that, which gives us a remainder of $2,030.09. Now we're going to shift over, and those of you who have been watching will notice that we do have some differences over here as well. We no longer show the Bank of America credit card nor the mom loan. Those are covered, cleared. We have paid those off. Hallelujah. So we are focusing on our Citibank. And then we've got our Discover and the Reflect, which we also pay. Now, for Citibank, it is $400 for this pay period. Discover, we do not pay during this pay period. The Reflect card, we do for $175. If you are new, we do pay this Citibank card each pay period. Because of the progress we have made with our debt, we have a natural snowball that we have been able to do because we've been allocating $1,225 towards debt since we started and beyond. With the reduction of the Bank of America and the mom loan, plus the effects of having transferred a couple of credit cards to a 0% promo card, we now have $800 that we can apply to the current Focus debt. And we didn't want that to be exceptionally heavy to one pay period versus another. So for us, it made sense to just cut that amount down the middle. So $400 for pay period 1 and $400 for pay period 2. The only thing we had to make sure that we covered was, one, making sure that the payment that we made in the first pay period would hit, before the due date, so we don't find ourselves in arrears there, and that the amount covered whatever the minimum payment is. Now, luckily, because this is one that's on a 0% promo, and because we've made some really good progress with bringing that debt down, the minimum payment is what I consider pretty low. It was $71. Then it came down. I think right now it's down to $62. And because we've had some of those extra after the pay period debt monies that go towards debt, I believe when it cycles again, it'll probably be down in the 51, maybe even somewhere in the 40s. We'll have to kind of see where we land. So anyway, we've met the needs there. We will not be doing the extra debt payment calculation just yet. So here we are. We've got $575 for that. So we still have our total money that we have left over here. So we're going to subtract 575, which puts us at $14.55.09. I have an allowance of $30 per pay period. So we can just do the easy math there, $14.25.09. Now, gardening season was what our longer term goal was before, and as you may notice, we have added a few more things to this list. Our goal was to meet $500 using the budgeted $100 per pay period, and we met that goal. We actually exceeded it because we also had some savings challenges that we did, plus we utilized some of the yard and garden money that we allocated into our cash envelopes. And so overall, we saved $606 to use during the gardening season. We still have about $140-ish of that left, and we are now kind of in a holding pattern because it's not warm enough at night yet for the items that we need to purchase starts for, which are peppers and tomatoes. So probably another couple of weeks, 3 weeks, maybe even a month before I'll feel comfortable with the temperatures. But we're not buying a ton of starts. We have some starts that we've done indoors already for both tomatoes and peppers. There's just a few specific kinds we want that we didn't have seeds for, so those we're going to get at the store. And we do need to get a new hose, and we will still need to get a little bit more potting soil for the items that we want to do in containers versus our raised beds. But overall, the $140-ish that we have should cover that no problem. So we then had to determine, what do we want to do next? Do we want to focus on just one item, focus on a couple? And after having discussion, we both agreed, especially considering the item we want to do next, it's better for us to put all of the money towards that so that we can meet the goal as soon as possible. And that is going to be the junk removal. If I do end up, putting in any little snippets about our garden in the video, there's a possibility you might see our back patio and you will fully understand why we are making this our next goal. It is a disaster back there, and that's not me saying things are worse than they really are. No, it is a disaster. We have so much just junk around there. We have junk around the yard. We have junk in our shed. Oh my goodness, so many things. And I am not a huge fan of utilizing the dump. I want us to recycle what we can, sell what we can, give away what we can, but there are absolutely going to be things that we have that those other avenues are just going to be closed. So we will be taking stuff to the dump. Our plan is to save $500. We want to rent a U-Haul truck, the kind that you use for moving, not like a pickup truck. Fill that up as much as we're going to need to, and then, take it, whatever it is, whatever we have to the dump, and that'll be that. Don't know if it'll be a situation where we need to do multiple trips. We are planning on getting rid of the broken down couch. The dogs aren't going to be thrilled about it, but it is what it is. The only thing we're not 100% sure about, because the cost of the U-Haul is going to be, pretty easy to cover. We just aren't sure how much the junk that we're going to be getting rid of is going to weigh, and so thus what the actual cost of taking the stuff to the dump is going to be. We're hoping that the $500 goal that we have will fully cover what we need it to, but I think what we'll do is once we hit that goal, we'll probably go and reassess again and see if does it make sense for us to keep saving for another month or two and maybe get up to $750 or even $1,000. I'm hoping that the cost wouldn't be nearly that high, but like I said in a previous video, obviously I don't know what things cost because going recliner shopping was quite eye-opening. But anyway, $100 is what we are going to be allocating for the junk removal during this pay period, which gives us a total of 100 down here. And we can do the easy math once again. And we have $1325.09 left over. So as you can see here, that increase that Mr. M got for his raise had a pretty big impact on what our leftover income is. We typically don't have things in the $1,300 range. It's, maybe $900, which isn't anything to sneeze at either. But that's pretty significant. So now we're going to do my favorite part. And that's going to be the 75-25 split as suggested by some of the folks who watch the channel. And that's 75% to debt and 25 to savings. So we'll take 1325.09 and subtract 75%. We're only going to take the dollars. We're not going to pay attention to cents. So we will be transferring, assuming everything goes a-okay, $331 to savings. So I'm going to come over here and we're going to add that in over here. And then we're going to go back to our 1325.09 and subtract that 331, which will then give us $994 for debt. That also tells us we have 9 cents left over for the pennies, so we are going to adjust this to show $200.09 for the buffer. Now we're going to split this one more time. So the $994 we are going to split between the city debt, which is our main focus, and Discover, which is just something I'm trying incrementally to help bring that down. What we do here is I'll only use numbers that are in the 00, 25, 50, or 75. So for this, the closest one is 975. If we take that from here, that leaves us with $19 that will be available for Discover. So we're going to go up here to the extra debt payment, and we're going to note the $994, and then we'll put here $975 of that will go to City, and $19 will go to Discover. Okay. Now, I have had some people ask the question of why don't we just move this to a 0% promo, and we may just make that decision somewhere down the line, but right now we have 2 debts that are on 0% promos, and they have significant enough balances that we don't feel comfortable adding a third one to the mix, especially because the likelihood of us getting Something that is in the 15 to 20 month range is very, very unlikely. And we don't want to put another time-based pressure account into the mix, especially because we do have the job loss still pending and we don't know exactly when that's going to occur. If we had a timeline that was, much more extended and guaranteed, then it might make sense to try and do the Discover card onto a zero promo. But because then we would know we would still have the opportunity for the extra debt payments each pay period, because my job would be staying at the wage that it's at, plus the increase that he's getting from his raise. So there would be a guarantee, as much as you can guarantee anything, of something to do extra debt payments. And while that's happening, we are making some very significant strides with our debt. And we recognize that the longer that I'm able to keep my job, the more often we are able to make those big chunk leaps for debt reduction. Once the job goes away, these situations are likely to not happen at all. We are not budgeting extra unallocated amounts once the job goes away. It's the intention for us is to simply do just the budget that we have, no extras for debt, no extras for savings, other than, like our $25 for the emergency fund that we have. So that's why, we are incrementally affecting that debt rather than putting it on a 0%. We just don't want to run the risk of not meeting the timeline necessary and then having all of that accrued interest that we had attempted to avoid then being piled back onto the account because we weren't able to satisfy the debt in time. Okay? All right. Well, unfortunately, I have rambled this to over 30 minutes once again. I try, I promise, I do try not to go too long. So I do apologize if it is something that is annoying to people. Please, again, it doesn't hurt my feelings if you watch it in 1.5 or 2 times speed. If you bounce around, I just appreciate that you take the time to check us out. I do hope that what we're doing is helpful, maybe motivational for folks who are unsure, can we make progress? Obviously, my first thing that I would say is do not compare yourself using the numbers. Focus on the process. See if what a person is doing specifically works for you, or if there's ways that you can take what they're doing and manipulate it to work with your situation a little bit more. Everybody's situation is going to be different. Everybody's budget numbers are different. Everybody's income is going to be different. So the effects of those are going to show up in a different way. And I really don't think it's helpful to say, oh, well, if you use our example, this person's able to do an extra almost $1,000 to take off their debt. I can't do that. My wage is X, or my costs are Y. That's just not feasible, and that's fine. But maybe there's something in how we organize our budget and how we are going about our spending that would work with your budget, and you might be able to see some kind of extra debt payment. It will just be on your time frame, on your time scale, on your money scale, and things like that. So I don't think it's helpful to compare your numbers to somebody else's numbers, because your life is different from theirs. So anyway, that's my little bit of unasked for advice. you are welcome. It costs $0, and so you can determine how much it's actually worth. That said, again, thank you so much for watching. I hope to see some comments down below, especially if you have any ideas, suggestions, or questions. And of course, if you just want to say hi, I very much appreciate those as well. We'll see you in the next one.